Transparency.
Building transparency. All right. So what we're talking about there is I can understand you're thinking, some of you might be thinking, well, look, we just deal with a problem when it presents itself. If someone rocks up to an event or whatever, then we'll deal with it. Well, today I'm here to hopefully change your mind and how you think about that. Because what we want to do in terms of transparency, and I get it, there's sometimes where you've got an event, you're holding an event, I think some of the nightclub venues, such as I think it's Pooh Bar or something like that,
Yep.
which is stairs only. Well, accept that, that's fine, but you probably do, well, not probably, I would strongly advise you to have something in your messaging, in your invitations that clearly said, despite our best efforts, this event is not accessible. However, we do have other events coming up that are. That's okay to do that, but you just need to be transparent and let people know so that someone doesn't rock up in their wheelchair or on their crutches and then they can't get in because there's not much you can do about it on the night. I accept that. But yeah, really give some thought into and where was I going with the nightclub things? I accept that a lot of these venues are not accessible for various reasons, and you just need to be quite clear on your advertising and messaging that unfortunately this is not accessible, but we do have other events and welcome anyone to contact you about specific requirements. What else have I got there on transparency? Transparency, I guess we're talking about clear communication. There is a checklist at the end of this, which I'll encourage you to, with a QR code, to go and have a look. It's a great resource. And it talks at length about how you may the types of fonts and the way you may I'd say wording's not the right word, but you know what I mean. So well, you may not. The way you display your advertising, so that all people get. Now, I'm going to be a bit critical of my good close friend Chloe Harris, who's done a great job in putting this together. And thank you, Chloe, wherever you are. Is she still here? If they're still here. But for me, I can have a little bit of difficulty reading that because it's white print against it's not a light green background, but it is a little bit difficult for me. So just having a little bit of a think about how people might be able to read stuff, but also you might like to think about having an accessible version of your advertising with a link to that too. Okay. Chris, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, thanks.
Yep, it's creating inclusion using the pull method.
Right. Okay, so we looked around for some really fancy. What? Someone yelling at me?
Online. We've had a hand up. Can we contribute?
Sorry, what was that?
Yep. Someone from online wants to contribute. Yep. Go for it.
Eloise.
Eloise, hello.
I just wanted to add to wheelchair access that a big thing that we deal with is that all of the university campuses aren't wheelchair friendly, right? So my point with that is if you're not sure if something is accessible, ask a person with a disability if it is, because often the answer is no. So don't presume accessibility to spaces just because they're new, because often they aren't actually. Like I went to a disability toilet literally earlier and the seat is positioned so close to the wall that if someone tried to sit in it from a wheelchair, they'd probably fall. So, you know, like the point is, even if you want to acknowledge that something isn't disability friendly, you need to take the step to consider what disability access looks like to begin with. What is the life like for someone with a wheelchair?
Thank you, Eloise. Thanks very much for, clarifying that. That's quite right. You, a lot of these places will, tick the compliance box to say that they're accessible, but then the chairs and tables are squished all over the place, and in reality, they're not. You're going to have to lay some eyes on some of these, spaces yourself, and then consult with people around what accessibility means to them. Granted too, that I can talk a little bit about accessibility for a wheelchair user, but I'm obviously not a wheelchair user. So keep that in mind when you are seeking advice. Let's see, the PAW method. So we decided on the, thanks to Renee, the Disability Equity Officer, for helping putting this together. So we've settled on the PAW method, which is POUR. So perceivable, which is deliver information in multiple ways.
Readable fonts, QR codes, social media.
That's all right. So that's repeating a bit of what I said earlier. Operable, offer alternative activities and experiences. Again, that's repeating what I said earlier. They're saying, well, sorry, on this occasion, despite our best efforts, but here are some other alternatives coming up. And then U is understandable. Ensure event.
Messaging is clear and avoids confusion or intimidation.
Yes. So I think that one speaks itself. It's fairly understandable, isn't it? So making sure it's very clear. There's no grey areas. And finishing off with robust. Be ready to adapt if something changes while maintaining accessibility. So, and that's a good one because things change. We need to be fairly flexible in our approach and what works for one person with a wheelchair or who's vision impaired or who's neurodivergent. It's going to be a bit different for someone else. So be ready for that. And so when I say be ready, I think we go to the next slide. I think it's my last slide. No, it's my second last slide. What am I saying here? Okay, providing safe and sensory spaces. So I realise it's not always possible. And I realise that some of the events and things, activities that you do you won't be able to necessarily find some of this. But where you can, I think it's really good. Again, if you can't, you need to say that up front and let people know.
Sorry, Mark. Someone just has their hand raised for Everest.
Yeah, go for it.
That was us from before. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, no worries. All good. Yep.
All right. Okay. So I lost my train of thought. Lucky there's a slide here to help me. We want to go, so recovery spaces, give that a bit of a consideration. Flexible schedules, incorporate small pauses.
Or downtime, allowing for people.
Downtime, right, okay. All right, so you don't want to hear me talking for 10 minutes, you want to have a bit of a break in between. Fair enough. And then beyond the checklist, think creatively about
accommodations.
Right, yeah, okay. So, yes, I've been at pains here to not incorporate this into a risk assessment because I don't think that this should be a compliance thing. And I don't think that this should be another layer of paperwork for all of you to fill out. It's about giving you agency to think creatively, but also be preemptive in I'll get a little bit technical for a second, adopting that social model of disability, which is about making things accessible for everyone before someone turns up, so that when they turn up, you don't say, "All right, okay, what are we going to do with you?" You've already sort of embedded in the way that you plan events and embedded in the way that you do things. You have a truly accessible experience for people that are turning up who are disabled and have long-term health conditions. If we could go to the final slide, thank you, Chris. No?
Yep. What to do next in your club or society?
What was that?
What to do next in your club or society?
Right. Is there a QR code there?
No, so this is the second to the last slide.
Oh, I really got keen on, didn't I? What happens when you do an assignment about a month or so ago and then don't read the slides or anything, you do the presentation? Okay, what to do, just to repeat what Chris says, what to do next in your club or society. All right, okay. Now, this sounds like I'm asking you to do work, but really, it's basically just
So assess your practices.
assess your practices, review your events and communications,
For accessibility gaps.
engage members, invite feedback. We talked about talking to people with disabilities, and I do give you an open invitation to ask me directly. And if I don't know the answers, I'm well positioned to be able to direct you to people who do. Then also to take action. Take action. Implement at least one accessible improvement at your next event. That's not a big ask, is it? Implement one accessible improvement at your next event. Now, you're probably already doing this, and congratulations if you are. But if you're not, and you know there's room for improvement, and I accept too, you know, sometimes it takes a while to get people on the journey when changing the way you do things or getting people to think in a certain direction. So one small step at a time is a good way to go. And I think we're done with that slide, Chris.
Final slide with a QR code.
Final slide. All right, okay, I want everyone to take their phones out and scan that QR code. I've looked around at varying resources, and I do believe that the Australian Disability Clearinghouse on Education and Training has probably the best set of resources for planning events and thinking about your messaging, your advertising, all up. So please take that QR code, take it back with you to your clubs and societies and use the resources there. We'll leave that up for the rest of the time, I think. Thanks, Chris. I think you're all pretty silent and you're all probably still digesting lunch. I hope I haven't been too boring for you, and I'm really at pains to make sure that this is not a compliance and work-related topic. This is about being more inclusive, recognising that in the future we're going to see more people that are going to disclose their disabilities and are going to turn up and are going to enrol in university and are going to want to look for experiences outside of their academic pursuits. So I think as us, as clubs and societies, we can make things more inclusive so that people don't feel isolated, then we're all in a better position and we're a lot better as a community going forward. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I sort of open up the floor to any questions that you might have. Thank you.
I was just wondering if TUSA has any resources for accessible venues and affordable accessible venues and what kind of accessibilities they are.
Great question. Thanks for that. I don't have the complete answers there. I'm probably, I'm looking at Chris and probably.
Liam's got the mic.
Oh.
It's a resource. Yeah, that's it. So it's a resource that we're building, but one thing that is happening that we didn't mention yesterday even about grants is something that we're working on is an accessibility grants line. So allowing clubs and societies to gain access. We haven't even set the cap for it yet, or it's a conversation that is very much live, but it's a new initiative that we're putting forward for next year, is to allow clubs and societies to submit grant requests to help improve the accessibility of their events. And what that looks like and such is something that we're still very much working through with Mark, but developing things like that is very much something. We've got a long way to go in this space, that's for sure.
But we're on the journey, we're doing something, so that's pretty good too.
Hello, Mark. Great talk.
Oh, well,
You said we should start small. Do you have anything that maybe we can start with? Do you have any ideas?
yes. Did you not see the QR code there? Did you take it?
I did take it, but what, in your opinion?
In my humble opinion, I think the first thing to look at would be your events, because that is probably the most likely space where you will perhaps receive some unwanted attention, shall we say? I think have a look at the way that you have a look at the way that you clearly advise your patrons and your members about the event space and how accessible it is, and make sure in the first instance you've clearly laid out what they're getting into, and indeed if it's not accessible, and therefore if it's not accessible, you really do need to back it up with saying, but we do have, despite our best efforts, we do have other accessible events coming up.
Anyone else?
Was that all right?
Is it?
I know you're a bit fussy, so.
Is that okay?
I was going to say on that note as well about things that you can do when you are running events. I'm speaking from an autistic ADHD experience for many neurodivergents. If you have certain, like putting on a show, for example, and you have loud flashing lights, big bangs, snap surprises, content warnings are really, really important. No matter who you are, it's always just good to have a bit of a heads up. That can be something very, very, very helpful. And surprisingly enough, same thing goes with food, with temperature, any sensory input you have. If there's something that's going to drastically change during the course of the event, it's good if you know about it and you can give it a bit of a heads up. But yeah, that was just a little extra. I thought
It's really great. Yeah, it really comes back to that clearly laying out and being transparent with what's on offer.
Any last questions? For Mark, over there.
Another question for you, Mark. So we've got things like the SAS training and the mental health first aid. Is there one that you would recommend that is like a kind of a disability awareness or disability ally training?
I'll have to get back to you on that. I think there's a raft of different sorts of accessible training events. I can't think. Is that am I supposed to know? Okay. Look, there are certainly opportunities for accessibility training and awareness. I didn't include any of those today, but I'm certainly happy to provide opportunities for accessible training and links to those sort of activities after this talk.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. All right. Thanks very much. I hope you've woken up a little bit now. Do you want me to give the microphone back?
Yes, please.
Oh.
There you go. So for those that did the social media session, I went AWOL and we started talking about this yesterday. Is this the?
That's 22. Yeah.
2022.
Yep. This is
Okay, so what we're going to look at is a series of infographics that TUSA has generated around what our student body looks like as a whole university. So go back to 2022. I mean, big things just to look at is obviously 33,000 in 2022. 57% were online. Next one.
yeah.
30,000 in 2024. So it dropped by about 3,000. But all your percentages around distance, mixed on campus, have kind of stayed the same. It's kind of one of those myths when it comes to UTAS is that COVID drove us all online. In reality, we were kind of already there before COVID. We've always had about 51% of our students have always been online, even pre-COVID at UTAS. And it's really our untouched resource, I guess, as clubs and societies. We have 51% of students that we're not really activating or utilising anywhere near as much as we should be. And Pamela, who's our TUSA online officer, is actually on the Zoom online. Is a really great resource in that space. But some of the other things that are really good to look at. So in terms of full-time, part-time is obviously a big shift. One of my favourite stats to always quote to university staff whenever they say, students aren't that poor, students have always been poor. If you go back to like, as of this year, we're now averaging working 27 hours a week outside of study whilst we're doing our degrees. If you go back to 2000, that number's 14. If you go back to 1980s, it's about 5. So when you're talking to the older generations and they're talking about, oh, we were poor and we were uni students as well, we've got it worse. But and that is reflected in terms of students that are in how we're studying in terms of full-time versus part-time. Age demographics quite surprises people quite often. So only about 30% of our students, 28% of our students are school leavers, which is under the age of 20. 20 to 30 is another 30%, 30 to 40 is 20%, 40 plus is about 20% as well. You also have gender splits and disability, as Mark said, we're up to about 10% now, which still sits about 15% below the Tasmanian average of the broader community. So as a university, we've still got a lot of work to do in that space. And it's still